the Jesus Revelation Symphony. This is a glimpse into the magnificent and beautiful life Jesus lived on our planet. Of all human knowledge, that which is of greatest value is to know the religious life of Jesus and how he lived it. Let your spirit soar as you hear Jesus' Revelation Symphony revealed anew through epical revelation, affirming that you are a son or daughter of God, our Father in heaven, and that all mortals are brothers and sisters. Through our becoming one with our divine spirits, we will be in harmony with each other, and through the fruits of the Spirit we bear, we can recreate the beautiful music of Jesus' symphony in our life in the 21st century. When the Master and the 12 arrived at Jacob's well, Jesus, being weary from the journey, tarried by the well while Philip took the apostles with him to assist in bringing food and tents from Sychar, for they were disposed to stay in this vicinity for a while. Peter and the Zebedee sons would have remained with Jesus, but he requested that they go with their brethren. Jesus was thirsty, but there was no way of getting water from the well. When, therefore, a woman of Sychar came up with her water pitcher and prepared to draw from the well, Jesus said to her, "Give me a drink." This woman of Samaria knew Jesus was a Jew by his appearance and dress, and she surmised that he was a Galilean Jew from his accent. Her name was Nalda, and she was a comely creature. She was much surprised to have a Jewish man thus speak to her at the well and ask for water, for it was not deemed proper in those days for a self-respecting man to speak to a woman in public, much less for a Jew to converse with a Samaritan. Therefore Nalda asked Jesus, "How is it that you, being a Jew, ask for a drink of me, a Samaritan woman?" And Jesus answered, "I have indeed asked you for a drink, but if you could only understand, you would ask me for a draught of the living water." Then said Nalda, "But, sir, you have nothing to draw with, and the well is deep. Whence, then, have you this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob, who gave us this well, and who drank thereof himself, and his sons, and his cattle also?" Jesus replied, "Everyone who drinks of this water will thirst again, but whosoever drinks of the water of the living Spirit shall never thirst, and this living water shall become in him a well of refreshment, springing up even to eternal life." Nalda then said, "Well, give me this water, that I thirst not, neither come all the way hither to draw. Besides, anything which a Samaritan woman could receive from such a commendable Jew would be a pleasure." Nalda did not know how to take Jesus' willingness to talk with her. She beheld in the Master's face the countenance of an upright and holy man, but she mistook friendliness for commonplace familiarity, and she misinterpreted his figure of speech as a form of making advances to her. And being a woman of lax morals, she was minded openly to become flirtatious, when Jesus, looking straight into her eyes, with a commanding voice said, "Woman, go get your husband and bring him hither." This command brought Nalda to her senses. She saw that she had misjudged the Master's kindness. She perceived that she had misconstrued his manner of speech. She was frightened. She began to realize that she stood in the presence of an unusual person, and groping about in her mind for a suitable reply, in great confusion she said, "But, sir, I cannot call my husband, for I have no husband." Then said Jesus, "You have spoken the truth, for while you may have once had a husband, he with whom you are now living is not your husband. Better it would be if you would cease to trifle with my words, and seek for the living water, which I have this day offered you." By this time Nalda was sobered, and her better self was awake. She was not an immoral woman wholly by choice. She had been ruthlessly and unjustly cast aside by her husband, and in dire straits had consented to live with a certain Greek as his wife, but without marriage. Nalda now felt greatly ashamed that she had so unthinkingly spoken to Jesus, and she most penitently answered the Master, saying, "My Lord, I repent of my manner of speaking to you, for I perceive that you are a holy man, or maybe a prophet." And she was just about to seek direct and personal help from the Master when she did what so many have done before and since, dodged the issue of personal salvation by turning to the discussion of theology and philosophy. Jesus perceived the attempt of the woman's soul to avoid direct and searching contact with its Maker, but he also saw that there was present in her soul a desire to know the better way of life. After all, there was in Nalda's heart a true thirst for the living water. Therefore he dwelt patiently with her. Once more she resorted to questions of general religion, saying, "Yes, I know, sir, that John has preached about the coming of the Converter, he who will be called the Deliverer, and that when he shall come, he will declare to us all things." And Jesus interrupted Nalda and said with a startling assurance, "I who speak to you am he." This was the first direct, positive, and undisguised pronouncement of his divine nature and sonship which Jesus had made on earth, and it was made to a woman, and a woman of questionable character in the eyes of men up to this moment, but a woman whom the divine eye beheld as having been sinned against more than as sinning of her own desire, and now being a human soul who desired salvation, desired it sincerely and wholeheartedly, and that was enough. As Nalda was about to voice her real and personal longing for better things and a more noble way of living, just as she was ready to speak the real desire of her heart, the 12 apostles returned from Sychar, and coming upon this scene of Jesus talking so intimately with this woman, this Samaritan woman, and alone, they were more than astonished. They quickly deposited their supplies and drew aside, no man daring to reprove him, while Jesus said to Nalda, "Woman, go your way. God has forgiven you. Henceforth you will live a new life. You have received the living water, and a new joy will spring up within your soul, and you shall become a daughter of the Most High." And the woman, perceiving the disapproval of the apostles, left her water pot and fled to the city. As she entered the city, she proclaimed to everyone she met, "Go out to Jacob's well and go quickly, for there you will see a man who told me all I ever did. Can this be the Converter?" And ere the sun went down, a great crowd had assembled at Jacob's well to hear Jesus, and the Master talked to them more about the water of life, the gift of the indwelling Spirit. Jesus and the apostles were preparing to leave when scores of mothers came to where Jesus lodged, bringing their children in their arms and desiring that he bless the little ones. The apostles endeavored to send them away, but these women refused. "Let the little children come to me, forbid them not, for of such is the kingdom of heaven." And he received all of the children, laying his hands on them while he spoke words of courage and hope to their mothers. And now Jesus would take his apostles along with him to Mount Hermon, where he had appointed to inaugurate his 4th phase of earth ministry as the Son of God. Jesus had been summoned to go up on the mountain apart by himself for the transaction of important matters having to do with the progress of his bestowal in the flesh as this experience was related to the universe of his own creation. "But who say you that I am?" There was a moment of tense silence. The 12 never took their eyes off the Master, and then Simon Peter, springing to his feet, exclaimed, "You are the Deliverer, the Son of the living God." And the 11 sitting apostles arose to their feet with one accord, thereby indicating that Peter had spoken for all of them. When Jesus had beckoned them again to be seated, and while still standing before them, he said, "This has been revealed to you by my Father. You are my chosen ambassadors, but I know that in the circumstances you could not entertain this belief as a result of mere human knowledge. This is a revelation of the Spirit of my Father to your inmost souls. And when, therefore, you make this confession by the insight of the Spirit of my Father which dwells within you, I am led to declare that upon this foundation will I build the brotherhood of the kingdom of heaven. Upon this rock of spiritual reality will I build the living temple of spiritual fellowship in the eternal realities of my Father's kingdom. All the forces of evil and the hosts of sin shall not prevail against this human fraternity of the divine Spirit, and while my Father's Spirit shall ever be the divine guide and mentor of all who enter the bonds of this Spirit fellowship, to you and your successors I now deliver the keys of the outward kingdom, the authority over things temporal, the social and economic features of this association of men and women as fellows of the kingdom." In a general way, Jesus knew beforehand what was to transpire on the mountain, and he much desired that all his apostles might share this experience. It was to fit them for this revelation of himself that he tarried with them at the foot of the mountain, but they could not attain those spiritual levels which would justify their exposure to the full experience of the visitation of the celestial beings so soon to appear on earth. Since he could not take all of his associates with him, he decided to take only the 3 who were in the habit of accompanying him on such special vigils. Accordingly, only Peter, James, and John shared even a part of this unique experience with the Master.